Hello, everyone. Mentofy, as we call it, mentoring by the millennials, is an education and networking platform where, along with the numerous mentorship programs, every Sunday we have a mentor who comes and shares his success story with us. And all the mentees get to draw from the experience, and it gives them a chance to interact with the mentor. Today, we have with us Stanford admits Pranil and Taksh. I'll just do a quick round of introduction. Pranil is admitted to Stanford University's MS in Electrical Engineering program, which is about to begin in September 2021. Currently, he is working as a software development engineer at Adobe Systems Bangalore. He graduated with a BTech degree from IIT Bombay with a major in electrical engineering and a minor degree in computer science in 2020. Along with that, we also have Taksh, who is admitted to MSc in Material Science and Engineering at Stanford University. Currently, he is researching for phase field modeling and stress analysis in lithium-ion batteries. He was also OPJM Scholar of the Year, and he also won the Institute Academy Award at IIT Bombay in 2017-18. So, Pranil and Taksh, welcome to Mentofy.
Hi, thanks, Shreya, for the introduction.
So y'all can begin with the agenda points. Our mentees must be waiting to hear what all you guys have to share. And after that, we can take up all the questions that came in along with us. And meanwhile, if you guys have any more questions, you guys can keep posting it in the chat box. We'll definitely answer all of those at the end.
Right. Thanks, Shreya, a lot for that warm introduction. Hi, all of you who are present here. Now that you guys all know what me and Taksh have set out to do, we just this next hour or so and guide you through how we went about doing it, right? So each of us will take a few minutes to explain our story, how we applied to colleges, how we got into arguably some of the best colleges around. And hopefully you will have something to take away from that. Hopefully it will help you when you apply for your postgraduate studies whenever you choose to. So with that being said, so I think many of you will be fairly new to MS applications. So what I will do, I will go first before Taksh, and I will introduce you to the general application process and all that needs to be done. Because I think some of you present here might not even be knowing that. This is a good place to start. And after that, both I and Taksh will give you some additional tips that maybe you won't find anywhere else. Maybe that is something that we've learned when we went through this process ourselves, right? That is something you probably won't know talking to anybody else who hasn't really applied or hasn't really gotten into good MS programs. So with that, let me quickly share my screen. It's not so much a PPT as just a list of things I want to talk about today. And yeah, I'll go in this order. So this is just to introduce you guys to what the process is and what is expected of all of us and how ideally one should go about it. So I imagine most of you are currently doing your undergraduate education or have just graduated, have just begun job, and are probably thinking about maybe doing an MS in the USA or some other form of post graduation that you want to do. This is where we begin. So these are your three major options. You might want to do a PhD if you're really enthusiastic about research, if you're really passionate about your field of engineering. PhD is a long commitment, as you all know. It might take 5 years typically for you to complete, but at the same time, it's a high reward kind of degree, wherein after you graduate with a PhD degree, you'll be able to get into some of the research departments of the big tech, right? Of either the big companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, or you might want to get into academia. You want to become a professor. You're passionate about your field and your research and you want to teach. Professorship is something you can explore with a PhD. The second thing which I and Taksh are doing is the MS, which is like the de facto choice for most engineering pass outs like us, which is for students who want to specialize in one particular field in their from their undergraduate curriculum. But also they do not want the rigor of a PhD degree. They just want a basic hands-on application level knowledge of the field that they want to work in. And the benefits of doing an MS, of course, are a job in the United States. That is for one thing, a higher pay than you might get from only your undergraduate degree, and a chance to expand your knowledge in the field that you're passionate about, to become one of the best in your fields. So, for example, I have worked in the past on NLP, on natural language processing, that is, for those of you who don't know. And I will use my MS degree to take up courses, take up projects in that field, so that I am much better placed to get a job in those fields. That is about MS. And the third thing, which is slightly lesser known, but is getting increasingly popular, is something called MEng, which is a master in engineering. While an MS degree is typically 2 years, or at least a minimum of 1.5 years, depending on how soon you complete it. A master's of engineering is supposed to be only 1 year. It is somewhere between 9 months to 12 months. And it is basically only to give you practical knowledge about that particular field. It is just hands-on knowledge that will give you skills that are directly relevant to industry. So if you want to get into academia or research, an MS and a PhD are typically prerequisites. But if you have decided you want to go into corporate, if you want to go into a company, and all you want is basic engineering knowledge, some practical know-how of your field, then M engineering is a good way to go. It has its drawbacks, of course. It is not the default choice. The default choice, as I said, is MS. But some of you can really think about doing an M engineering, as that can definitely give a good boost to your career. And speaking of MS and M engineering, they come in two types, right? One is a thesis type, and the second is a non-thesis type. What I mean by that is, non-thesis types are ones where you are not expected to do long, lengthy projects. You will be expected to complete your program only via courses in fields that you like. Thesis, on the other hand, will require you to work with a professor, work on a 6-month-long, 12-month-long project, and publish a thesis at the end of the project, right? If you are really interested in research, if you see yourself going into academia a little bit later, you can consider the thesis option. For those of you who want to get a job at some company in Silicon Valley or elsewhere, a non-thesis option is just as good. Just know that if you do a non-thesis option, you typically are not favored to do a PhD degree later on after you graduate. So to be able to do a PhD degree, it is always better to have a thesis-based MS done already. Cool. So now that you know that, the application process is something you guys might already be familiar with. There are different stages in which you will do it. So for example, if you want to go into university next year at this time, you should start preparing this year. September 30 is when I advise you guys to get done with your GRE and TOEFL. Then spend the month of October deciding what universities you really want to aspire to go to. Decide on your university choices. I'll speak about that a little. December 15 is the application deadline for most universities. Okay. The earliest application deadline is typically December 15. So you get a nice month and a half to actually get your applications in shape. And yeah, so some of the universities might even have their deadlines past December 15th, which is to say up to around 15th Feb I've even seen 15 Jan, 15 Feb, end of March as well. But yeah, most of them will be around December 15th. Okay. So now that you've begun preparing for your GRE and TOEFL, one thing I want to clarify here is that GRE and TOEFL are a very small part of your application. I've seen that applicants give too much importance to GRE and TOEFL. They are just basic hurdles that you want to clear to get into a good university. They do not carry a high weightage in your final selection decision. So, I'm sorry. So any score above 320 or even 315 in GRE and above 9500 in TOEFL is good to go. You are safe. Don't think about it too much. Don't think about giving your exams again and again. GRE and TOEFL are just a small hurdle in a huge race to win. Cool. After you're done with your GRE and TOEFL, you will choose which universities you apply to. This is something you can know after you've talked to seniors from your college, from your university who have gone abroad and done MS. They can basically give you an idea of which universities are feasible for your profile. Okay. So talk to people, talk to professors and seniors and get to know which universities are safe bets for you, which of them are ambitious and which of them are moderate. So I would say typically students apply to around 10 universities. So say around safe could be 3, moderate could be 5, ambitious could be 2. This is a flexible division, of course. This is something, this is something you'll have to figure out based on what your field is and what seniors in your field in your college or university have applied to and successfully gotten into in the past. When you choose your university, you should definitely look at their program and curriculum. You should definitely see what interests you, whether it is thesis or non-thesis, whether you have enough flexibility to take up courses outside your specialized field and so on. Location is something that is increasingly important. So typically people say that getting a college in California, for example, is certainly reaps dividends for you when you are looking for a job or an internship. So especially if you're doing computer science or electrical, mathematics and computing, mechanical for that matter, for robotics and stuff, California is something you can think of. Texas is another booming industrial hub. There are others, of course. There's New York for financial related, quant related jobs. There's Boston for mechanical and so on. We can discuss this later. One other thing you should consider definitely is funding opportunities. So some universities typically give their students some scholarships right up top. Some others will allow students to take up teaching assistantships or research assistantships and help them partially fund their tuition fees. So you should definitely look at the track record of the college to find out what options for funding are available to you. What are their tuition fees? What is the cost of living? All of the information will be available on their website. Coming to selection criteria. Okay, this is like one of the most important things I want to talk about. This is like the juiciest part of today's talk. So what exactly do universities use when they decide how they are going to select their future students? So regardless of how much ever someone tells you that grades are not important, they are very, very important in that if a student has provably good grades, then the college can rest assured that he's a dedicated and sincere student. I think that's a dead giveaway that he's a good candidate for the college. However, if you do not have high enough grades, if you have moderately high grades or even lower grades, then you need to sell yourself based on your projects, your publications, your prior work experience, your internships, your patents, if you have any. So those are things that you will need to sell yourself using. Grades are something that are self-evident that the admissions committee will directly know about you. The letter of recommendation has to be submitted from 3 people who you worked with. The people could be, the person could be your ex-professor, the one you've done your undergraduate thesis with, your work manager, or your internship manager as well. It is preferred that your LOR comes from a professor instead of someone who works in the industry. And this is typically something you don't have a huge control over, but make sure you choose the right people to give you an LOR. The next most important thing that makes an impact is your SOP. So your SOP should be clear about why you want to do an MS, what are your interests, what are your long-term goals. It should narrate a story about you, and it should be very impactful to the reader and should convince the reader that yes, this is an ambitious candidate worthy of our seat. And this is the last thing that I've mentioned here. So this is I mentioned it last, but it's not the least important. So which universities you can get into definitely depends on your field. So if your field is extremely competitive, if you're applying, for example, in machine learning or computer vision or CS in general, electrical in general, expect that competition will be extremely tough, and you might want to temper your expectations about your universities a little bit. Better safe than sorry. That is what I say. So yeah, these are the things that the admissions committee will look into. Funding and scholarships is something we already discussed. With that, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to talk about. I know that all of you have some questions. You sent some previously, and you might also be asking some questions in the chat box right now. We'll take those up after Taksh has done speaking. So thanks a lot. Let's have the Q&A session in a while.
I'm Taksh Satra, as you know. Okay, so I'll try to point out some different parts that I believe that would be helping in the application process. So as an applicant, these are the different parts that I believe that you should be preparing for. First is the GRE or the TOEFL exam. Second will be the letter of recommendation. Third would be the statement of purpose, your resume, and your application process overall. And I'll just try to tell you some tips and some tips, some tricks, and some personal opinions that I have based on my experience in each of these. So first I'll take about GRE and TOEFL. So definitely GRE or TOEFL, both marks are just like a initial filter which the university makes. So getting up above par score, as Pranil has mentioned, is important. But getting that score might be tricky for some of you, or it might be easy for some of you. So I personally know Pranil, and he was a very good guy in language, always used to be since the school days. But on the other hand, I personally was not that good in language. And even I guess Pranil might agree to it. So what I'll suggest is like try taking a first test, just a practice test, GRE test, even before you're starting to prepare yourself for the exam. And that will give you an idea of how good your vocabulary is at the 0th step. So I have seen people, there are some people who are as good as getting above par score in their first step itself. They know their language very well. They have a strong vocabulary, and they definitely score well. So such a person can take that exam earlier and get it done. So it might save his time, and he can use that time in making or remaking more SOPs or making a better resume. On the other hand, a person like me, I personally had taken 2 months of preparation so that I could score a decent score of the mark which Pranil had mentioned, about 320. So I personally had to take 2 months. So it depends from person to person. So I'll suggest take a test, see where you are, and then accordingly plan that how many dates, how much time you want to give it yourself. For TOEFL, I'll just say that it's a easier version of GRE, and it's much more focused on language and your ability to speak and ability to understand if someone is speaking in front of you. So better would be taking the TOEFL as early as possible once you're done with GRE. So I have mentioned within 1 or 2 weeks of GRE date itself, take your TOEFL date and get it done. So now we'll move on to the next part. So about the letter of recommendation, LOR. So there are some universities which ask for only 2, while most of the universities ask for 3. So it's always better that you mail the professor while you are starting your application process itself, taking the permission. I'll suggest that have one more professor in mind or one more person that you're planning to ask LOR just as a backup. The reason being, it had happened with myself that there was a professor who I had an intern with. So he said that he would be only recommending me in only 4 of the univ applications and not the others, because he had a personal bad experience in the past where a student had asked him for about 50 to 60 applications. So he had got frustrated by that, and he had said that, simply told me that send me only 4 university names and I'll recommend you only in those. So in such a case, that it's always better that you have one person or one professor in mind as a backup, whom you can ask in any case, in any problems happen. Sometimes it even happens that the professor gets delayed in sending the recommendation because of some problems he might be having. So it's basically, it's always better to have a backup, and always keep on mailing and requesting beforehand. So even if you are sending his name in an application process, it's always better that you mention him that I would like your recommendation in following university. So it's always a safe side to send them a mail. So talking about the resume, definitely grades matter the most, as Pranil has mentioned, but maintaining a balanced profile is always good. So not just academics, but you can add some amount of your leadership qualities, sports, cults, or social services. It always shows, it always has a good impression if you have been an all-round performing guy in your earlier days. So the third point is only my personal advice. In case you are writing about any conferences, write it only if you have actually presented your work or participated in the conference in some manner, or in terms of either a poster competition or something. But if you have just attended a conference, don't write it because it does not look good. And on the other hand, there might be some people who may have presented their work in some or the other way. So it automatically pulls you down in terms of your profile. The next part would be SOP. I'll suggest that if possible, try taking. So Pranil had suggested a date of around 30th September and gave you an entire October for SOP. So if you feel that you might have slightly issues in your language, then you can shift it a bit ahead and give more time to SOP, because SOP is something that is much more important and puts a very big impact on your work, on your profile. So write your own work and avoid plagiarism. They always tend to check with the previous applications and all. So if they find something matching, so that might definitely create a problem. And making and remaking lot many drafts is always important because it helps you in improvising your SOP. And always look for the question in the application form. You will always see that instead of straight away asking submit your statement of purpose, there would be a question asked, and always stick to the question and ensure that your SOP answers that question. And I have always observed that every university has its own way of asking questions, and they ask something or the other in a different manner, or sometimes a totally different question. So it's important that that question is answered correctly. For example, in an application regarding Cornell University, they had asked about what is the kind of work that would you like to do when you're there, or what is the problem that would you like to solve when you're working there. So it's not just about telling you your story, but also what's your future plan, what is the specific question you wish to solve, and answering accordingly only would ensure that you are rightly submitting your application. There's a book by Donald Asher. So this was the book I was reading through for SOPs. It's a good book. So I personally recommend, if you want to get some tips or you want to understand how you should be supposed to write, you can read that book. Now the application process. So checking and listing the deadlines is an important part, I would say, because yeah, average is definitely 15 December, as Pranil has mentioned. but some universities are as early as November end, example being UCLA itself. There are some Oxford universities also have some early deadlines in October, November itself, and there are some universities which are as late as February, in first or second week of February. So you can accordingly plan which university will start working on and plan an order accordingly, focusing on each university when the part comes. And as I mentioned, checking the required format of SOP. So so it's better that you go through the application process once it's released. So application process starts in somewhere in September itself, September, October. So it's always a good idea that you go through the form, what kind of questions are they asking. So for example, in MIT, instead of asking an SOP, what they do is they ask 5 questions and they expect you to answer each of these questions in around 100 to 150 words. So it's not exactly an SOP they are asking, but what they are asking is a bunch of questions. The questions would be similar: why you want to do this, or what is your future plan, or why are you choosing this university. But still, in that case, you have to frame your answer accordingly. So that's why it's always better that you have gone through the application process once and seen all the questions, the form of questions that they have asked in the application process, so you can plan it accordingly. So this is from my side. So I'll just mention that a strong profile would have a good grade, a decent GRE, some projects and interns, a convincing SOP, and some conferences or publications if any possible. And you must just try to tick mark as many of these as you can, and more the boxes you have filled, a better chance that you have in getting a good university. That's it. All the best, guys.
Thank you, Taksh. Thank you, Pranil. I think both of you all covered the agenda points really well. I'm sure it has already shed light upon many of the questions that our mentees had. So a few other questions that came in. So I'd begin with them now. So one of the questions that came in was, in case, so you said that a good CGPA matters, right? I mean, it does count. So in case if somebody's CGPA is below 8 or say not extremely good, then does the job experience help in covering for that?
I would say it's always better to have a higher CGPA compared to just a job experience. But yes, if you are able to sell your job, the work you did when you were working as an employee, if you are able to sell that in a way that the university thinks makes you a good candidate for that particular field and that particular program, that will definitely help. I mean, it shows that you've had industry experience and you are capable of driving projects on your own. So it does help.
Right. So job experience does matter because like another question that came in was, is it okay to go for masters directly after engineering, or is it, better to have job experience? So I think job experience will definitely add in to the resume.
Okay. I would say the job experience will matter if it is strictly related to the program you are applying in. So, it won't help if you are, say, a software development engineer and you're applying for mechanical engineering MS or even electrical engineering MS. So it may not help in all cases, but if it's strictly related to what you plan to do in the university, then it will help.
Correct. Right. Makes sense. So nowadays there are so many options for the different courses. Like even when it comes to masters, there are few courses which are 2 years long. There are few courses which are 1 year long. So what would you suggest? What would both of you suggest? Should someone go for a master's course which is like 2 years long, or just 1 year long would suffice?
I personally believe that one must go for a 2-year course right now, because even at IIT Bombay, what I realized was it was not about what you learn there as an academic person, but it's also what you learn by spending time with the people around. And later on, even if you want to apply for a job or something, you need to develop contacts, and that's one of the most important part. And I believe that it would be difficult to make those contacts in 1 year. You need 1 more year. So it's right now it would be better if you plan for a 2-year course, but yeah, I believe 2 year would be a better one.
Okay, that's great. And another question.
Just to add here, So just like Taksh, even I had considered only 2-year MS programs. I had not considered 1-year programs. And the reason I did that is because for 1-year programs, as soon as you reach the US and begin your program, you have to start applying for jobs. You have to start applying for placements. And basically your master's program is not at all helping you get a better job anyway. Whereas in case of MS, you will have 1 year of master's education before you start applying. So that definitely helps you get a better job.
Okay. And which semester would be great to start preparing for MS? So, for example, there are a lot of, as you all mentioned, the application process consists of a number of components like GRE, resume, SOP, TOEFL, LOR. So, when would you suggest would be the right time for this to students to give their GRE, TOEFL, and go ahead with the other processes? Or maybe when you all can share when you all went through that.
I'll suggest earlier is the better.
Okay.
So
So
you
as soon as
can,
one decides they want to go for MS, they should just start.
yeah, it means the rule is that in case of GRE and TOEFL, 1 year or even 2 years of your marks is acceptable. So even if you're planning that you're not going to do it this year and you're planning to apply it for next year, even if you get done with the GRE part as early as possible, it's nice. So it just reduces your pressure later on.
Correct.
So earlier is better.
Definitely. And so a lot of our mentees wanted to know what is your opinion on masters in India versus masters outside, considering the research point of view. There's like we have MTech courses in IITs, NITs, or basically all prestigious institutes in India as well. So which do you think is more beneficial?
From a research point of view, institutes in India are only just catching up. Okay. So you'll have a decently higher quality of research work at almost every university in the US compared to every university in India. That being said, if you get into IITs, you'll find a fairly competitive research atmosphere. You'll find fairly driven and ambitious professors there you can work with. So personally, I would say getting into MTech in an IIT is better than going for MS in a lesser known American college.
Okay. So,
I'll just add it to it. A simple question would be why a person is considering to go for a MS in IIT. It's because you know that it's the best in the country, to put in the simple words. Similarly, if you can go for something which is considered to be the best in the world, why not give it a try? So just check which is the better one.
right. And why did you all choose Stanford? I mean, definitely, apart from its heavy reputation, were there any particular reasons that you all went for Stanford? Chose to apply to Stanford.
Taksh, do you want to go first?
Yeah. I'll say none.
Yeah, I mean, it's Stanford. I mean, come on.
Yes.
So yeah, it was definitely one of the ambitious universities that I applied to. The other one being MIT, of course. And yeah, it's everyone. So almost all the departments at Stanford are very good. So I am an electrical person. So, but from whichever department you are, I think Stanford is a good bet to apply to.
Okay. Another one of the questions that came in was that many a times it is mentioned on the college website that there are some prerequisite courses that might be needed before starting the actual intended course. So these courses taught on the college campus itself before announcement of the actual course?
Before announcement, could you repeat that again? Announcement of?
Yeah, so there are some prerequisite courses that colleges mention on the website. So are these courses taught on the campus itself, like in the university itself before commencement of the actual course, or does one have to go for these prerequisite courses on their own, and it's something that is considered during the application process?
So I know some universities offer those prerequisite courses during the summer just before joining. That being said, I think if a university has given you an acceptance for your application, that means they are satisfied with your credentials and you won't need to do additional technical prerequisites separately. If they think you might be lacking from a language perspective, they might ask you to attend an English course, for example, to learn language. That's all. Yeah.
Okay. Then another question was that what are the different ways a student can earn scholarship for his or her MS program?
So I would say look at the track record of that university. Talk to alumni and your seniors who are already there. Every university has a different probability with which they will give you TA ships and RA ships. So for example, Stanford is notoriously infamous for not giving any TA ships or RA ships to its students, whereas some publicly funded universities like Berkeley and other UCs, uh, they are more relenting in terms of giving TA ships and RA ships. So yeah, do your research basically.
Okay.
I'll just say that that has been reason of many of the students around us for choosing PhD and not MS, financial status, because MS is costly. People know that, and on the other hand, in PhD you get some amount of stipend, which to some extent covers that amount. So that financial status should be one of the parameters while selecting MS or PhD program.
And how do you get into an Ivy League college with a low GRE score? So I think you spoke about the other components of the application process, and I think those matter a lot. So is there anything you would like to add to it, or I think you guys covered pretty much everything that was needed.
So I don't really know because I haven't applied to many Ivy League universities. I think I applied only to UPenn and Columbia, I think. So from what I know, so we have basically heard from people around us that Ivy Leagues give especially a high amount of importance to GRE and TOEFL scores. That is only true for non-technical kinds of programs. This is from what I know. So if you're applying for Harvard Law or Yale Medicine or no, not medicine, sorry, Harvard Law or arts or something like that, that is where the statement I just made holds truth. Whereas if you're applying just for engineering, I don't think they will give that much higher preference to GRE and TOEFL anyway. So it's like any other college, to be honest. It's just a small hurdle that you cross before your actual application even begins, so to speak.
Yeah, you can just call it a filter. So it's like a bundle of applications they have, and they want to define a filter so that they have to only read next 100 applications or so. So it's just a filter. You have to just cross that filter.
Okay.
So I mean, if you have a decent GRE score, nobody will be bothered about it. Nobody will. So even if you get 340 on 340 in GRE, nobody will be wowed by it. But if you have a low GRE score, that looks like a black spot on your application. So GRE is just one check mark. Yeah, like Taksh said.
All right. And what are the placement opportunities after completing masters in abroad? Like, do the universities have campus drives? And I think because of the whole pandemic thing, there's a lot more uncertainty when it comes to getting placed. So, what are the opportunities? Have you all explored your options over there?
So what
Okay,
I
I'll
have
go first.
here, okay.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, so they don't have traditional placements that we are used to, that we get in Mumbai University or IITs or any other Indian college. They will have something called job fairs, where you can interact with industry personnel during that job fair, and you can figure out which company suits your profile, and then you can apply for an interview there. That is what I just said is applicable to both internships and your final job. As to the pandemic, I don't think that's a cause for concern anymore. I think hiring has pretty much bounced back to its normal state, even as we speak.
I think that's a relief then.
It is. It is.
And so another question that came in was, what is the application procedure for other graduate schools inside Stanford? So one of the mentees is aware of ICME, which stands for Institute of Computational and Mathematical Engineering, Stanford. So are there any such institutes there, and what would be the application procedure for them?
So I believe it would be quite similar only because it's a part of an engineering school of Stanford. So it must be the same. Just every department that takes care of its own graduate programs. So just the selecting committee would be a different committee. Nothing else would be different. Yeah.
Correct.
And which branch of MS helps you get into the electric vehicle industry, EV industry?
Well, you could do CS, you could do electrical, you could do mechanical. I think those are your. I think even I think Taksh would say energy and MEMS could also help you get into battery tech. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I was planning the same.
Awesome.
All right, I think we can take up questions from the chat box now. So Arka has this question that if the university requires 3 LORs from the student, does one or more have to be from a mentor in the industry? Can we still apply if all 3 LORs are from internal professors from college?
It's fine. My Stanford University admit had all the 3 professors from my university.
Okay.
Actually, sir, this question is based on a wrong premise. Actually, it is preferred to have LORs from professors, especially in universities that are highly driven by research. Even if so, okay, it is definitely preferred to have all 3 LORs from professors. Some universities will require that at least 2 of the 3 LORs come from professors. That is one thing. And the second thing is, if you do not have 3 good professors that can give you 3 good LORs, then you might look for someone from the industry who can give you an LOR. With that being said, that person from the industry should ideally have a PhD. So if that person is just some BE graduate from some unknown university, that does not help, honestly. It will be really helpful if your recommender at least has a PhD, even if they are from the industry.
And I think Taksh, you mentioned a book which you used for writing your SOP. So if you can just paste it in the chat box. I mean, we'll definitely be uploading this video on YouTube, but just for the reference now.
So actually, I don't remember the book name, and my laptop was recently got. I just remember the name of the author.
Okay, all
so
right.
I just mention it in the chat box again.
Okay, that would be great. Then another question is there any fees just to apply to the universities?
Oh yes, it's like 10,000 per university, 10,000 rupees per university.
Okay.
So there is one component of it is application to the university, and then 2 other components are for sending your GRE and TOEFL scores to the university. So all of these together will constitute around 10-12,000 per university. And if you're applying for 8 to 10 universities, it could easily reach 1 lakh rupees.
Okay. And Devesh has this question regarding LOR. So Taksh, I think you mentioned about getting multiple LORs from your professors. So do we need separate LORs from each professor for different universities, or do the same LORs work when you're applying?
Yeah, so process is like that. You just send in the application form, you just send the name of the professor and his email ID and other information. It's the university's job that they'll mail the professor and ask the professor to send a PDF or something for your behalf. So what the professor normally does is like he just keeps one kind of PDF which is constant for you as a person, and he'll just change it a bit according to the requirement of the university. So nothing much that you have to do on your side. It would be just informing the professor that these are the universities that I'll be giving your information to.
Okay.
So one more thing I want to add here is, so just because I remembered it right now, is that make sure you do not have access to that letter of recommendation. Basically, when you apply to each college, they will give you an option of whether you want your professor to send the LOR directly to the university, or whether you want to take it from the professor and then send to the university. The second option is very unfavorable. It leaves a very bad impression on the college because, of course, the LOR might be might not reflect your true self as a student. So always make sure your professor is the one to directly send the LOR. And apart from that, so every university might have some different forms to be filled by every professor. Okay, so I know some universities have an MCQ based list of questions, an MCQ questionnaire. They'll basically ask, how sincere is he on a scale of 1 to 5? How regular has he been in submitting assignments in your course from on a scale? And stuff like that. So every university will have their own shenanigans that the professors will have to go through. That being said, like Taksh said, there is typically one essay question for the professor to fill, and the professor can basically copy paste most of their material and keep it common for every university.
Oh, okay. So I think that is something that goes in the back end, but the college student, exactly get to know that you are also involved in the writing of it.
Correct.
Okay. And Sarthak has this question that what is the weightage of publishing research papers for masters? So I think you all mentioned it as one of the important components. But if say somebody does not have research papers, or like how much does it matter?
For masters, it's fine. It actually depends on field to field. In my field, especially talking about material science, it's the fact like at a bachelor's level, you don't expect people to have publications. It's very difficult in material science research because publishing papers takes a lot of time. So if you are applying especially for masters, it's fine if you don't have a publication. It's always good. It's like an added bonus point, but it's fine if you don't have it. So it depends on field.
Okay.
Correct. So fields like machine learning, for example, where publications are much easier to come by, you will find that many of the applicants do have that extra edge of having a publication. So I think it definitely matters. So one other thing is different universities will have different records with respect to research. So for example, if you go for the top tier of universities, right, tier 1 universities like Stanford, MIT, and the UCs and so on, they focus heavily on research. So in their applications, it will be significantly better to have a publication or having presented to a conference instead of other not so well known tier 1B or tier 2 colleges. Those might not focus so much on publications. Also, publications are really good to have for PhD. Publications are, like Taksh said, not a hard requirement for masters.
Okay, so it's not a hard requirement, but definitely having it matters. Depending on which college you are applying to. Okay. And Sohan has this question that what were your GRE and TOEFL scores? And since both of y'all are from IIT Bombay, you already had edge in your profile. So what should someone who's not from IIT maybe have on their profile to get admitted? Is there anything you would like to suggest?
Okay, so easier part of that question first. My GRE score was 332 and analytical writing was 5. And my TOEFL score was 115. I mean, Taksh, if you want to go ahead while I think about the rest of the
Yeah.
question.
So as I had said earlier, he is always known for his language. My score in GRE was 324, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, 324. TOEFL was 102, and I think so SS score was, I don't remember it clearly. It was 2.5 or 3 or something. So yeah, these were the score. And specifically talking about the profile, about the IIT part. So I'll say that it would be very much important for that person to be the best of his college at least, or among the top students of his batch. It's like you're applying to some best universities, so you need to be best in your university to get an admit in there. So basically just having strong points, other strong points might help in overcoming this one. Uh, in fact, I have seen some people who have got admits in some very good universities who were from not from IIT or some tier 1 colleges of India, just because they had a matching profile and they were really good in their university, in their colleges.
Okay.
For sure. So yeah, so let me again add to that.
Sure.
So what I was saying is, if the person from the admissions committee who is evaluating your application, if that person happens to know about IIT Bombay and its brand value, then I admit it gives IIT Bombay candidates an edge over other lesser known colleges. However, if that person who is evaluating your application does not know much about IIT Bombay, then he will treat all Indian colleges as the same. This happens more frequently than you would expect. So it is possible that they don't really know that IITs are supposed to be prestigious in India. In which case, like Taksh said, if you were if you got if you were rank 1, 2, 3, if you were rank 1 from a Mumbai University college, you might get into Stanford, whereas someone from IIT might not. So it definitely, it might give an edge sometimes because it is a well-known tag all over the world, but in many cases it might not. And so I know universities like USC, which is the University of Southern California, which does not care about colleges at all. USC has a simple metric. If your CGPA is above 9, they give you an admit. Otherwise, they don't. They don't care which college you are from. So, yeah, I mean, the top tier of colleges might definitely care about you being from some IIT or BITS or NIT. Uh, but in many other cases, they might not even care. So it's like a toss up actually. We can't really say.
Right. So before I move on to the next question, I would just request everybody to fill the feedback form. I have pasted the link in the chat box, so it would be really helpful if you guys fill that. So the next question that we have is from Shantanu. So he says, will the pandemic change the approach taken by universities to select the candidate? Because I think in a lot of universities, GRE was not made compulsory anymore. So, will anything apart from that or that change how the universities look at the candidate profiles?
So there is no way for us to be sure about this. Maybe it affects their decisions. Maybe because a lot of students are deferring their admissions. Maybe admissions for you guys might become a little more, a little tougher. But who's to say? I mean, we don't really know. Every college has different guidelines, and they have different guidelines even themselves every year. So I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. Taksh might throw some light on it, maybe.
I'll just add one sentence. A fact being said, even I don't know what part of our application had actually really impressed the committee over there and had given us the admits. So we can just tell what can be a good point, what can be a bad point. We don't know that what might have been that winning point or would have given us the admit. So even what would change the admission process is something that we can't say.
Correct, definitely. And another one of the questions that came in was, how much does the final year project of the student matter when it comes to applying for the universities or the selection process?
Okay. So first of all, it's not a hard requirement for applicants to have done a final year project. Um, Many people so for example, in IIT Bombay, it is not a mandatory requirement at all. You can complete your entire BTech without having done a final BTech thesis, as you guys call it. That being said, the final year project is a good place for you to show off your skills. And if you have pulled off a really impressive project with a publication or with some good research output out of it, uh, then it definitely is something that might impress the evaluator.
Okay.
So I'll just add a bit. Yeah, so I just have lost the track. What was the question?
The question was, how much does the final year project matter when it comes to the application process?
Yeah, so the fact is that difference between an MS program application and PhD is that in PhD, it's the professor actually who selects the student and shortlists the student. While in case of MS, it's the department office, you can say. So in department office, they'll just see, you have done some project and related to material science, that's fine. So it just adds a point. In case of a PhD, they'll actually see how much you have done, what kind of work you have done, how much it's actually related to the field you are applying to. So a final year project would definitely give you an edge in that case. It would impact less when it comes to an MS program in general.
Okay. The next question that we had was from Neil. So Neil says that if we have an honors or a minor degree in the field which we are interested in doing along with the bachelor's degree, so will it help to make one's application stand out?
Sure.
Like doing a minor degree along with the bachelor's.
Sure. It definitely helps. It doesn't not help, but it's not that big a deal. So I have done a minor degree in computer science, but I wouldn't say it will make my application stand out. I mean, anybody could have done those 4 or 5 courses that are required. It's a good thing to have, but don't worry about it if you haven't done it.
Yeah, so these things are only useful when you are actually planning to apply in your minor field and not in your major field. So having some knowledge in your minor and then making it that your major might be helpful. And otherwise, it might not make that big a difference, to be honest.
Okay.
It just shows that you have some good time management skills.
Okay, that's great. So I know, Taksh, you already mentioned that even you don't know what actually got you selected into Stanford from your profile. But Sohan has this question that what do you think was the thing that on your profile made you stand out and get admitted in Stanford? If there's anything that you guys have a hunch, that could have been that factor.
If I want to be honest, it would be my department rank from IIT Bombay.
Okay.
I would say the same thing. I think, I mean, of course, I'm sure none of the components of my application and Taksh's applications were particularly bad, because if even one component had been even lower than average, we wouldn't have been selected. But I think the one thing that the two of us share in common is that we had good grades.
Cgpa, definitely it matters.
Yep.
So more importantly, the department rank, to be honest.
Okay. Right. Then Soham had this question that how and when can we apply for teaching assistantship at our university?
So some universities will give it to you right up front when they give you an acceptance for your admission. Some other universities will not commit to giving you an RA-ship, TA-ship. They will ask you to come to the university, apply, and then if they are lucky, they might be selected.
And in added to this, in some universities, it's even a rule that you can't apply it in the first semester itself. You have to you have to work, stay there for a semester, study there. You might apply for the next semester.
Okay, so it depends on the university.
Yeah.
Okay. And Divya wants to know what would be your opinion on whether to apply for spring or for the fall program? Like what difference exactly does it make?
So fall is the default option, and fall is beneficial. So if you give me a choice, I would definitely choose fall, because that is how the university's calendar is supposed to function, right? They will have orientations at the beginning of fall. They will have simpler prerequisite courses in the fall semester. Also, you might be better equipped. There is something called CPT, which is your summer internship. And to be able to do a summer internship, the US government requires you to have stayed in the US for 9 months. So if you begin in spring, you will not have completed 9 months, and essentially you cannot do a summer internship. So that is another drawback. So I mean, fall is the default option. If you are really thinking about spring, I think lately because of the pandemic, a lot of students have chosen that option. You'll probably be okay. But if you were to ask me to choose one right now, I would choose fall.
And is it the same for you, Taksh?
Yeah.
Fall would be the preferable option.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question that we have is from Advait. So he's asking, what is the scope and hiring options of electronics engineering in USA?
I mean, scope to matlab bahut hai yaar. So if you get into, there are like tons of companies in Silicon Valley. There are startups. There are the big four. So electronics, if you're specifically asking about electronics, there's Apple, Intel, Qualcomm, AMD, Nvidia. All of these will give you Texas Instruments, and then many other robotics companies. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of scope. There's a lot of scope, and it will also probably pay well.
Okay. So one last question that I can see from Deven is, should one take expensive but high-ranked university for MS, or something which is slightly less ranked but practically fully funded, like PhD? What would be the preferable option?
Okay. So from what I've heard, so I don't know because I haven't really gone to university yet. From what I've heard from seniors, US it doesn't really matter which university you come from. So India has an obsession with good colleges, the IIT tag, the NIT tag, the BITS tag. US it exists. I mean, of course, the tag goes with you wherever you go. But what matters at the end of the day is your skills and your experience. I think that's what I've heard about the US. So, I mean, if opting for an expensive private university is really a pinch on your pocket, might as well choose the second best university that gives you full funding.
Yeah, so just one factor would be that how ready you are to commit 4 to 5 years for that PhD program. That would be one question that you should ask yourself. And if you're fine with it, definitely go for a medium ranked one, fully funded PhD program.
Okay. All right. So I think we are pretty much on time and I don't see any more questions. So thank you so much, Pranil and Taksh, for answering all the questions patiently and for taking out the time to be here. And if we have any more questions coming in, we'll definitely forward it to you. So to all the participants present, you guys can write your questions at hello@mentofy.com so that we can forward them to Pranil and Taksh. Thank you so much, guys. And also for more webinars or any more queries, you guys can follow our Instagram, LinkedIn pages, Twitter pages. And this video will also be going up on YouTube. So you all can watch it there and, rewatch it for all the important things that the two of them shared today from their experience. Thank you so much.